This is the Sandman on TV Podcast Industries, and we're discussing the Sandman Chapter 2, Imperfect Hosts.
Well, you ever keep anything for yourself?
No.
Not even dreams, tools? He's gonna want them.
And I'm guessing that you do too.
The tools, they won't work for me. They're made of the same stuff I am.
So, why are you here?
I'm gonna see if we can help each other. I can show you how to use them.
Use them to do what?
Make him go away for good this time.
You want me to kill the King of Dreams?
You can do it. I know you can. You just have to listen and trust me.
Then I'm afraid we're both dead. Because I don't have them.
Welcome back, fellow dreamers. This is TV Podcast Industries, and we are talking about the Sandman Chapter 2, Imperfect Hosts. I am one of your hosts, John.
I'm one of your other imperfect hosts, Derek.
Yawn. I couldn't actually yawn, and I wanted to open with a yawn, so I just went, yawn. I'm Chris.
Yes.
Is that saying something about your thoughts on this episode, Chris?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Okay, excellent.
Dreamers, yawning. Thought it would be a nice one, but I just didn't have a yawn in the can for this recording, so I just thought I'd at least be a bit more descriptive and narrative. If you
Excellent stuff. Yes, fellow dreamers, we are your podcasting fates here for the Sandman. Who's going to take the Crone? Not me. Bagsy, not me.
Go on. I already
As
looked
the
at that,
eldest,
that's fine.
I'm most likely the Crone, really, of all three of us, aren't I? Guess, Chris, that makes you the Maiden?
Yes. Oh, I'm the mother. Yeah. Excellent.
I haven't been a maiden for a while. Not since last Christmas.
But yes, it is. Yeah, it's kind of Spice Girls-y when three become one, I guess.
Yeah.
Where a trois becomes uno, I guess.
That's a very different
no,
Spice Girls
it
song.
certainly
if
is.
it's about a threesome.
Yes, very much so. But yes, welcome back, fellow dreamers, to our spoiler-filled discussion of Sandman Episode 2, Imperfect Hosts. If you're joining us for the Sandman series, of course, please head on over to our website at tvpodcastindustries.com, where you can subscribe to the podcast on any dreamy or nightmarish podcast catcher of your choice. And of course, any thoughts, theories, comments, or discussion points that you want to raise, please send them in for our feedback section to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com.
Absolutely, yeah. We really want to hear your thoughts about this series. We're recording a little bit in advance for these first couple of episodes, and we want to say a huge thank you to our wonderful fellow dreamers for joining us for the podcast. Don't know how you're watching it, whether you're binging every episode, whether you're watching an episode and then listen to the podcast, but thanks so much for taking the time to join us on TV Podcast Industries for the show.
Yes, but Derek, let's start this off. Can you give us the who, what, where, why, when, but, if, maybe, sort of?
The main people involved in the show, John.
Yes.
No problem. No
exactly
problem.
what I mean.
The executive producers of the show are Allan Heinberg, Neil Gaiman, and David S. Goyer. Showrunner for this show is Allan Heinberg, and this is based on the DC Comics series The Sandman by Neil Gaiman, Sam Keith, and Mike Dringenberg. And this episode was directed by Jamie Giles, who directs episode 2, 3, 4, and 5 of this series. So Jamie heavily
Getting a
involved
run
in this
in,
part.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. The episode was written by showrunner Allan Heinberg as well.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, so his stamp on the series right here. John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for Sandman Chapter 2, Imperfect Hosts?
Sure. After his 100 years of imprisonment, Morpheus finally returns to his realm, but his realm is in disarray, his dreams and nightmares have gone, and only his loyal servant, Lucienne, remains. To rebuild, he must recover the power of his helm, pouch, and ruby to restore his kingdom. Morpheus must contact the Fates, the Maiden, the Mother, and the Crone to gather the information he needs to find his tools, but his imprisonment has left him weak, and he doesn't even have the power to do that. Morpheus must make a sacrifice of one of his creations to contact them, and he heads to the houses of mysteries and secrets where Cain and Abel reside in order to sacrifice the life of Gregory the Gargoyle. As Dream leaves to contact the Fates, Cain murders Abel again. Meanwhile, the Corinthian pays a visit to Ethel Cripps, the last known holder of all of Morpheus's tools. He attempts to convince her to use the tools to destroy the Lord of Dreams to keep himself in the waking world, but Ethel explains that she no longer has any of the tools. Corinthian decides to force an unhelpful Ethel to reveal her knowledge by taking her eyes, but unknown to Corinthian, she has a trick up her sleeve, using the amulet of protection to escape his threats. Following her narrow escape and knowing Dream is loose in the world, Ethel makes an urgent visit to her son, John D., in his secure hospital to let him know that they have been discovered. With the small amount of power gained from Gregory, Morpheus travels to meet the Fates and gathers some clues to the whereabouts of his tools. He once again leaves his realm, ignoring Lucienne's request to take a Raven Protector with him to find Joanna Constantine and his pouch of sand.
So truly off on his journey now, Morpheus.
Yes.
Yes.
I think so.
I like that he's already leaving the realm of dreams after being away for 100 years, but there's lots of reasons.
Yeah, I mean, he gave it a go. He tried to rebuild it, but just didn't have the power. I really like that, for sure. But shall we get into our top moments from the episode? So, speaking of which, top moment 1, destroyed realm of dreams.
Yeah. Let's just talk about this opening moment, because it is to kind of confirm, I suppose, how much Morpheus's power has dwindled. He can't even restore his own castle, his primary location within the land of the dreaming. He tries to restore the stained glass windows, tries to restore them all, but doesn't even have the power to do that. When discussing it with Lucienne, she says that over time, the entirety of the realm has fallen apart. For a while, she was able to keep a diary of what was going on, everything that had changed from the point that Morpheus had been captured and left. But even her diary that she was keeping the whole time has ended off being blank pages. The entire library itself has lost all of the knowledge that's been accumulated over the millennia that the dream realm has been around. So, I thought that was a really interesting, piece of the discussion. Lucienne is the librarian of the realm of dreams, and she's a librarian without a library, and still stayed because she had faith in the master of the realm.
Yeah, this for me was the fun part of kind of having Lucienne as our kind of, if you wanted, the explainer, but that's not, it's probably a terrible way of describing the guide.
Yes.
The guide to the dream realm for the viewer, if you will.
Yeah.
The narrative exposition. Because it's not as bad as some of the previous cliche Basil exposition, where the role of this character is only to provide exposition to the unknown audience, or the fourth wall. And that's not what Lucienne is doing in this. It's being delivered in such a way that it's reminding Dream of his role and his responsibilities and the need for Dream to be the realm of Dream to be rebuilt.
Yes.
And I liked the way it was delivered. I think that was like, it could have come across very cliche. And I think that was when they first, I think it was the second time they did it. I was like, oh, you're verging in a way here that could be that. In that it was like, oh no, but you can't go because that nightmare over there is going to escape if you don't. Quickly run over here with me and we're going to fix this nightmare. Oh no, over there, look, this the field of fishy dreams is like falling. I would like to see what fish dream. It would be interesting. I'm assuming it's just plankton.
Possibly. But they fall asleep? I'm not sure whether fish fall asleep. Wouldn't they drown if they fell asleep?
No, they keep moving.
Depends, I guess.
I don't know. I'm not qualified.
Yes,
to talk
let's
about
not
that.
get into that discussion about the biology of fish, I guess.
Yeah. But you're totally right that Lucienne is kind of telling this tale in a way that doesn't feel like exposition heavy. I also like that you get a bit more of her character here. She is willing to challenge the Lord.
Yes.
She is willing to tell Morpheus, you know, what to do and give him guidance and try and stop him when he's doing things that she wouldn't agree with. So I do like her position here in the Land of the Dreaming. It's quite cool.
Well, that's it. I mean, you know, you really get the sense here she is this loyal and perfect kind of sidekick to Morpheus, in that, as you say, she will challenge him, but she is the only one that stayed here really in his realm. At least that we know of, but, I mean, it's just the nice contrast, you know, we saw from episode 1, this fantastic realm full of life, and everything going on, and here it's just decayed, crumbled, and we see the toll that his imprisonment has had on him, in the sense of, you know, he cannot rebuild this. He is powered down because, you know, it probably explains the reasons why the nightmares and the dreams can't just be called back by him. You know, he needs his accessories, you know, to power up effectively.
His sigils of power is what the 3 items are called. There are actually 3 other residents of the realm of dreams, which is our second point. We've got Cain, Abel, and the wonderful Gregory the Gargoyle, who are still residing in the Land of Dreams.
That's true. But I mean, it seemed like they were in the real world. I don't know. I didn't really associate it with that realm. But so they are still there as well.
They are, yes. They're the owners of the House of Mysteries and the House of Secrets, Cain and Abel. Probably very well-known mythical characters, Cain and Abel, right? So they are the children of Adam and Eve, and the first murderer, the first victim. So Cain constantly murdering Abel. I love how they've been introduced here, because we do see that very quickly. Already borne out, I think there's 2 murders in this episode, as Cain murders Abel twice, definitely.
Yes.
It's a hot poker to the face, and it's a pitchfork to the stomach. So, good stuff, Cain.
I love the Cain and Abel from the stories, from the comics, which are also stories, but back to mythological stories. They're a fun duo throughout the comic books, and even in this, you see that kind of back and forth, and the forlorn of Abel just being, I just want to live with my brother. Wouldn't that be nice? Kind of, in the sweet English accent.
Yeah. Abel's a really nice character, actually. I like the idea that he's just trying to make his brother happy. It doesn't really hurt him too much to be murdered every day and come back to life. You know? Well,
I like that he says, I'm glad you only gave me a shallow burial, so he could get out. There wasn't too much soil on top of him. No, that was really good. Yeah, they're really, really good, characters here. And a really interesting little, interview with Neil Gaiman, because this world of the Sandman is populated with different DC characters, and that Cain and Abel, he lifted from, Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, he used them. And I mean, I understand they are fan favorites. I guess that tic-tac of murder, resurrection and so on. But also then, you know, the Gregory the Gargoyle, I really enjoyed this idea that gargoyles were created by Dream. Seemingly Cain and Abel's, you know, loving pet, because, you know, we do get a sense here, certainly from Cain. Abel seems a bit more philosophical, that it's something that Dream has to do, but Cain's quite annoyed that effectively, because Gregory is this creation of Dream, that he needs to then reabsorb that power back, it just to give him that extra bit of fuel so that he can contact the Fates. So I thought that was kind of an interesting dynamic. I don't know whether that's something that plays out in the comics, but, you know, just Cain taking it a bit harder really than Abel, although we do have, the replacement, for Gregory, come in as well.
Well, you're asking whether it's in the comics or not. Cain is the aggressor always. He's more angry about everything in the world because he is the first murderer. He is always wound up by whatever happens. It could just be a strange look that Abel gives him. He gets murdered. So he is always much more aggressive and less thoughtful. But it is the loss of their pet. He's lived there with them, forever. I think, Morpheus says that originally Gregory was created as a nightmare, but then moved over into the land of dreams. So, so he's a much more fun, nice character. And yes, they do have the sacrifice of Gregory here, which is really sad. They do play it as him being a pet. He's playing with a ball and trying to have fun with his masters, but he still gets the choice from Morpheus as to whether he will give himself up, whether he will sacrifice himself for the greater purpose, effectively, or whether he will stay alive and continue to be the pet of Cain and Abel. And I believe that is a decision given to Gregory. We don't hear it, obviously, because Gregory doesn't speak, but you believe that is actually a decision given. He could have made the choice to say no, but of course was willing to sacrifice himself for Morpheus. And
I'll call out two things. One is this: the House of Mysteries, House of Secrets is an Easter egg as well from the comic books from Constantine. That's the house that he actually gets later as part of Justice League Dark. That's their headquarters.
Yeah.
Which is nice. Just a nice. Obviously, this is where it came from.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Cain has the House of Mysteries and Abel has the House of Secrets, I think. Yeah. It's might be the other way around, but both have tea and biscuits. Yeah. Exactly.
But then, as you talked about the choice that they give Gregory, I'll call out the CGI here. The eyes, they focused incredibly on the eyes.
Yeah.
Just for this one scene, and I understand why, because that's where you're focused in on, and they've able to emote on a character, on a gargoyle, this sacrifice and understanding for a liege, for example. I suppose the best way of putting it. Your lord of the realm has come and asked you for sacrifice. And I didn't think they could, because there's very few CGI characters at that level where you can kind of that's non-verbal. Let me put that. CGI characters that are non-verbal that you can get a level of empathy with.
Yeah.
So they obviously just know, okay, well, look, we're not going to be able to do like DreamWorks level or Pixar level for the whole episode. So let's just focus in on this quick 15-second scene to really kind of hammer home that this is a tough choice even for the gargoyle, but it's going to be okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I really like the way he kind of, dusted, I guess. And there was just the only thing with the dusting, like, I really, really liked it. I was just like, it would have been really cool, because when I think of gargoyles, I think of, the gargoyles on cathedrals or Oxford colleges, that kind of thing. And, that he would have kind of turned to stone, like one of those, and then dusted or something like that. But it was really, really good. And I think, like you say, Chris, that expression from the eyes and just the body movements of Gregory done really well here, given that he is non-verbal. So really, really enjoyed sort of the emotion of all of that. Yeah,
absolutely.
You got a real sense it was a struggle, and you have Gregory giving himself willingly, the kind of protests from Cain and a bit from Abel as well, but also, you see even in Morpheus's eyes that this is not something he's doing lightly.
Well, exactly. And he does at least bring a replacement as well. He does bring an egg to them later on, and we don't go a whole episode, I guess, with just that death of Gregory hanging over us. We have Goldie, or Irving, coming back, or Gerving, as Abel wants to call him, coming back later on in the episode. And I like the two reactions again to mention Cain's more aggressive reaction that the reason why Morpheus is doing this is because he's trying to rub salt in the wounds for them, whereas Abel realizing actually Morpheus is just as regretful of having to sacrifice Gregory as they are. So he's bringing them a replacement almost. But this is, I guess, our Grogu or Baby Yoda for Sandman, right? Having Goldie sitting on the shoulder of Abel and having that kind of interaction between the two of them, which we don't understand, of course, but a very cute little gargoyle there.
Yeah, I thought that was really just touching that, you know, Morpheus replaces Gregory here. You know, I thought that was really nicely done.
Yeah, yeah. And the reason for the sacrifice, of course, is to get a little bit of power so that he's able to communicate with the Fates. So he's able to get in contact with the Fates, which is our point number 3. The
exactly.
Riddles of the Fates. Yeah.
Yes, the riddles of the Fates. Well, I really enjoyed this, actually. I mean, certainly just from the start of it, you know, there's multiple names for the Fates. There's the 3 in 1 or the 1 in 3.
Yep.
The past, the present, and the future. But the other thing I thought was quite interesting, the lead up to this was, you know, I don't know whether it was Lucienne now or whether it was the Fates asking when he got there, you know, what about asking your siblings like Destiny and
Lucienne.
Desire? And I think, you know, real important things coming out of that, you know, they have been known to dabble outside of their own realms in other people's realms, which I thought was kind of interesting, you know, whether that's for good or for mischief. But also just, you know, it's noted that they didn't come to Dream's aid at all whilst he was imprisoned.
Yes.
And there was no help forthcoming.
Not even one of them helped him. Yes. Not the closest ones, not the furthest away from. Nobody helped Morpheus at all.
Significance here to the story here. So I really, really kind of enjoyed. I think the other side of this that I really loved was we see Morpheus having to get 3 items here in order to get to see the Fates. We have the crossroads from a Vietnamese dream where it's the place where they will meet. We have the gallows that is surrender and sacrifice for the greater good. And then a gift, which is the serpent, which is a symbol of transformation. So he has to go this. I mean, I love the way he captures the serpent in his trench coat. Really cool little move there from Morpheus. So that was really cool.
Absolutely. But also, the idea that they bring in here is how big in scale or scope this show can be, because you're talking about dreams. So the idea of having Morpheus's hand coming out of the sky to grab the crossroads out of somebody else's dream so he can meet the Fates at that crossroads. I think that's really cool, just seeing that gigantic hand coming in and grabbing that out. That was really cool. And also the reason for the gift of the serpent is that it's life, death, rebirth. So we've got the Maiden Mother Crone. So again, a symbol of 3 going to be given to them so he can have the conversation and they can give him an answer to each of his questions. So we have the Fates here.
We do, but just before we get onto the Fates themselves, I absolutely loved Morpheus and Lucienne on the pier, on the jetty, just with his ocean or sea of dreams, effectively. This fluid of nightmares and dreams. And I loved how that kind of played out, and the whole thing with his reflection in the water.
Oh, I knew that was coming.
It was just so cool. And then how you kind of, you know, sort of Moses-like with the Red Sea, that it parts to allow him to walk to see the Fates. I just really enjoyed that concept of, you know, somewhere in his realm there is this vast ocean of dreams and so on, which, you know, again, because he's been away, there's the little nod say they're a little bit out of control in that they don't recognize their own master anymore, which I thought was cool.
Yeah, no, the Sea of Dreams was cool. I was expecting a bit more Ditko. If you think almost in that, sorry, and by Ditko, I mean Steve Ditko, the Marvel kind of artist and kind of colorist. It was a bit more, when I envisioned the Sea of Dreams, it was a bit more color. It was a bit more kind of high on LSD and with multi kind of all the colors of the rainbow. Yeah. Which it could be in the future. Yes. I think it's just that there's been no Master of Dreams. He calls out the turmoil, the waves, and the everything is just rushing and like it's not in control.
And that they don't respond to him. Yeah. Absolutely. And before anybody says anything, we know Steve Ditko was not involved in Sandman at all.
Yes,
it's just,
100%. Yes.
He is well known in Marvel circles as being someone that has those kind of crazy concepts for some of his artwork. But I think you're right, Chris. I think this is just because he's going back in. It's this fluid sea, but not responding to his master. So it will look very different in the future, as the entire realm of dreams will if he gets it back.
Yes.
Let's talk about the Fates then. And some other very interesting characters from the Sandman comics, of course. The representation of them here as three who speak alternating lines, but all very distinct personalities, I feel. I think they've done a really great job of casting these three actresses in the roles here as being completely different from each other and delivering and having this conversation with different voices, I suppose. And again, as the Fates have been around in many, many mythological stories, I also love that there's a bit of there's something scary about them as well. There's a little bit of threat about them. When Lucienne says to Morpheus, for example, they don't always give you what you want, and hardly ever what you need. So I thought that was quite an interesting introduction to them. And Dream has an opportunity to ask a question of each of them and get one answer and one answer only from the three of them, which I think I really like because it comes across as really frustrating. It must be really difficult when you ask a question and then you go, oh, I didn't phrase that exactly the way I wanted to. Could you tell me the exact answer? No, you've had your question of me. Ask another.
You're speaking of the scariness. They do overlay something else every time they scream and yell at him. There's just a blink and you'll miss it kind of flash of skulls or bared teeth, or they just transform them into something kind of nightmare fuel-esque.
Yeah, and even merging the three faces together at times.
Yes.
And having that, it's a great image from the comic book where you have one in the center and two on either side of the faces of the Fates. And that's really cool.
I loved this. I loved the whole piece of it. It was just, again, you're right about the actresses or the actors who are portraying the Fates. Mm-hmm. And one thing actually I should call out, every actor I've seen so far has been perfectly cast. Mm-hmm. Not with my total headcanon castings, but when and I think that this is what you get when you have the original creator of a show or a book or a comic book or whatever involved, because he's able to translate what was in his head and go, yeah, that person can deliver X or Y. So when you see these three actresses who I'm like, not what I would have kind of gone for. Like, you think the Maiden is the long blonde hair, kind of busty bosomed, kind of like old school medieval damsel in distress. Like that was how it's always kind of to a degree been portrayed, or the lithe, one of the kind of Roman virgins lying on a kind of couch. It's always been the Maiden has been the very young girl. The Crone has been the old age withered, like touch her and she'll fall over and break granny of death. Right. Visions of death. So how they've gone and portrayed all of these is not as far in the extremes as what, but when merged together and perfectly delivering their own sections of the lines, you said it best. They each have a distinct personality as the past, present, and future. Yeah. And that's, again, just, I wasn't expecting this when they've gone, and it's like even Lucienne. I wasn't expecting the librarian to be that. But when I've seen it now, 2 episodes in, I'm just shocked and awed by how well or not even how well, excuse me, because that sounds derogatory, but how fantastically it is all coming together within just like, what? Like, it's not even 60, it's not even an hour and 20. Yeah. It's like under an hour 10 at the moment, probably, for these, and it's surpassing what I expected. attitude.
Yes.
And I know it sounds silly when you start talking about the fates.
Yeah.
But it is that expression, because it is, you expect something, and then it's the directors and it's the creators and everyone coming together going, well, we know you're going to go, you're expecting this. So if we give you this, but we give it in such a way that is portrayed in such reverence, it's going to be great.
Absolutely. And, there's choices made in the comic book from the original artists that, make things stand out in one panel. Whereas obviously we have, a moving picture show on Netflix, so they have to make different decisions.
They made it move.
Exactly. But they have to make different decisions to make things connect. And I think part of what's interesting about the casting of the actors in playing the roles here of the Fates is that they all kind of look a little similar. So you can almost see them as three stages of one person, which is the point, or three completely individual people, which works quite well.
And it shifts between that. Which I thought was really good. I mean, I thought this whole sequence was great, where just the dialogue of Morpheus asking the questions and then being admonished for going a stage too far. Yeah. Because they have their thing and that's it. One question for each of them and one answer. I really like that. I loved how it moved from having all three to kind of just the single respondent to the question there. And as you say, it was sometimes looking the same and sometimes then the distinct actor and character playing the fate. And I really enjoyed the sequence again, another really fantastic way of just getting the information around then the tools and where they've gone and the answers to those.
Absolutely. So they do give answers, but again, somewhat vague. So Joanna Constantine has purchased the leather pouch at some point in the past. Ethel Cripps traded the helm to a demon for the protection stone, which we see her using later on. And then we hear the ruby was given from mother to son, but no detail behind who that is, what that is.
Well, exactly. But even with Ethel Cripps and the helm, that is not meant. Ethel Cripps isn't kind of identified by the fates. It's just saying a person in New York has traded it to a demon. So, it's all a bit kind of vague, and there's still investigation that needs to be done. I mean, the most specific one, at least in terms of identifying a person, is that they talk of Joanna Constantine and the leather pouch. Although the question, as you say, is then, well, does she still have it? So that's the unknown bit there. Yeah. And also the interesting point that comes from Morpheus is that he knows a Joanna Constantine from his past.
Or knew someone 300 years ago.
300 years ago. So, that's kind of interesting to see how that comes along, because for episode 3, I guess, well, we kind of know he's on his way to meet her. So
he's a man with a mission.
He is. This is giving him his clues for where he needs to go.
And we'll call it out here. It's depending on when you grew up and what you listened to, it's Constantine or Constantine. It's always going to be one or the other, and it's probably, this podcast is going to go through 4 iterations of it.
Well, yes, it was mispronounced when Keanu Reeves made his movie Constantine. And I know there was a lot of frustration amongst fans of Hellblazer and where that character comes from, and fans of Sandman, where Constantine has overtaken the pronunciation that was originally there of Constantine. So we're going to try really hard to stick with the Sandman's pronunciation of Constantine, but we may say it the wrong way as well.
But we're not going to be religious on the matter.
We're going to try that too.
No. Yes. No, not at all. But I just wanted to call it out before someone started, as the 4 ways through, someone's going to go, I was furiously typing going, my feedback is this show is amazing, but my God, you need to learn pronunciation. It's okay.
Exactly. But I suppose armed with this knowledge, this does send Morpheus off on his next mission. So our 4th point, really, just to quickly talk about it, Morpheus going off to London to meet Joanna Constantine is how the episode ends. We see Morpheus leaving to go off and on his new mission. But I just wanted to talk about this a little bit because it's Lucienne pleading with him to take a new raven to replace the one that was murdered by Alex Burgess. Jessime was his last raven.
Yes.
I just think it's really something to nail here, because Lucienne has been holding up the realm of the dreaming on her own almost for this 100 years. And once again, Morpheus is going, right, I have a mission, I need to leave. So she's terrified that it's going to happen again. She's waited around for him. She's just got him back. And now he's going off on another mission, leaving her behind, to keep some kind of control over it. So he hasn't actually done anything to restore the realm of dreams, nothing more that he's done other than saying he's back, he's alive. So will it just continue to decay if he's stuck out in the world for another 100 years? Will it continue to fall apart and continue to decay? And you can really see that in Lucienne, that she's really worried about it, but she can't stop him. He is the master. He is the lord of the realm. So all she can do is recommend that potentially he takes another raven with him, to at least monitor and report back to her.
Yeah. It's essentially, it's the kid whose dad went out for cigarettes like 4 years ago and actually did come back. But then every time that the dad goes out for shop, the kid thinks the dad's going to disappear.
It's like, or maybe, it's like the household dog, the pet.
Oh my God, you're going!
Just,
oh my God,
yeah,
oh my God,
exactly. Where it's just the anxiety and panic of the dog that he's on his own in the house, with only the destruction of that house to keep him entertained and to vent the frustration, I guess.
Right. So Lucienne might start throwing around the book.
She might destroy the realm of dreams even more, I guess. But
plot twist: there was never any.
It wasn't
disintegrating. She was just really pissed and slowly worked
really
her way
anxious.
across.
But really good to meet the fates and see then this. I guess the first story of how Morpheus recovers his tools in order to power up.
Really looking forward to that.
Definitely.
And Jenna Coleman plays the character of Joanna Constantine. We're really looking forward to seeing her in the show. I love Jenna Coleman. She was fantastic in Doctor Who when she was on that show. She had some fantastic episodes. Huge Doctor Who fan. And also she did that excellent drama, The Serpent. So two good recommendations for other Jenna Coleman work. I'm looking forward to seeing her here.
Yeah, she was really good in that. So I'm really looking forward to see Jenna Coleman play Joanna Constantine there. But let us move on to our fifth and final moment of the episode, because running along in parallel with Dream's shenanigans is the Corinthian. And in particular, we see him visiting and finding a lady that we saw in the first episode, Ethel Cripps. And, having heard the fates through all these sequences that they have together in her New York apartment in Buffalo, you then begin to understand that it was Ethel that gave the ruby from mother to son, as we see, and also traded the helm to a demon from hell for a really cool amulet that she uses to great effect in here. And I mean, I think this interaction between Corinthian and her was just kind of really just great. I mean, the Corinthian is so creepy. And that's just what held within this whole discussion. I loved it. Even just the flirtiness. There's that moment where, like, are you flirting with me? And, Ethel says, oh, you're supernatural and sexist. You really are a nightmare. And I thought that, what a fantastic line that Ethel has there. And, in a sense, she has gotten rid of the tools long ago. She doesn't know exactly where they are, but I like the fact that she is holding back, whether that's to give her some cred if Morpheus ever catches up with her, or it's just simply she just doesn't like the Corinthian. I really kind of like that because it added to that tension, and ultimately, we get to see the gnashing eyes again. And you caught the teeth better in this episode.
Yes,
I really saw his sort of, you saw the dental work there on show much better. Yes. But I think it's because it's closer in,
and he's having a proper conversation, so you can see the teeth in his eyes move as he's talking as well. So these are other mouths that he has. It's not just teeth in the eyes. It's actually 3 mouths that this guy has.
So I thought that was realised better this time.
Yeah, it was just a flash of it in the first episode. This time feels like you've got the full version of the scary Corinthian here.
Yeah, and I mean, ultimately, the Corinthian is there because he's out, Morpheus. He wants to ensure that his presence in reality is maintained, and he wants to sort of control, destroy Morpheus so that he has free reign.
So he can stay in the waking world.
Exactly.
Yes.
Quickly, just asking,
is this for a friend?
Can I dial one in? The actual teeth delivery, what do we think? In the comic books, it looked despicable and nightmare fuel. And just here, now, the actor, the portrayal, the delivery of the lines, everything there is top notch. I don't know if, for me, the teeth eyes are landing because they don't look, maybe if they had have sharpened them to points or something, or made them a bit more evil looking, but they don't look like evil eye teeth for me. They just look like really small mouths, baby mouths. If that makes sense.
So they needed British teeth then. British dental work.
Essentially, yeah. Or really slackjaw yokel, middle of America, meth head teeth, or kind of
sort of yellow stained, slightly chipped or pointed, a little bit decayed. Yeah, maybe.
Interesting. I suppose because obviously, same as yourself, Chris, I haven't read the comic books. I knew it was coming, but in my mind, I thought they introduced it quite well because it's more, what am I looking at when he takes the glasses off? To me, I think they laid it up that way. It's like, hang on a second, has that guy got mouths in his eyes? And then they start moving while he's talking. But it's coupling it with him taking out his dagger, this really pointed, sharp dagger, and going, I don't even need you to talk to Ethel Cripps. I don't even need you to tell me where these things are. So he's about to do his signature move, take her eyes and take her experience effectively. So I think all of that coupled together make him a scary character. I'm not sure whether just the teeth in his eyes alone is enough. Because that's probably what makes Corinthian so creepy as a character, is because he is willing to do all this stuff. He's not just your average murderer on the street. He's a nightmare come to life. So the fact that he is willing to threaten her and go, this whole conversation is actually pointless. I can just take your eyes, but I was willing to work with you. You know, I think all of that coupled together make it scary. I'm not 100% sold on if he was just a poster seeing his eyes that would be scary in and of itself.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I'm in agreement. It's the delivery, the package makes it the scary point.
Yeah.
I just think we just need to bring him to the dentist, fall down the teeth into some points, and then he's nightmare +1. That's all. We want to up level the nightmare.
But I think it's better realised in this one, this episode, because, and I think it's just being closer to his face in the delivery and at that moment in the scene. Because, as I say, the first episode, I just thought you had silvery, glittery eyeliner on. And I was like, you go, girl, you go.
We should say, because we're watching previews of the show for Netflix, they are marked as work in progress, on the episodes that we're watching. So just in case there is some changes to the CGI in the final versions,
that's true. true.
Just conscious that we may be seeing things that might be slightly tweaked by final release, because the episodes were released for review a couple of weeks ago, and there's still some work being done on the show. So just conscious that if we over push it, that the CGI is bad, or that we didn't like it, that there might actually be final changes made on tweaks on the final.
I would love it if one of the sets of eye mouths had braces on, just because he was getting that, you know, I mean, because that's pretty scary as well, because of the pain of when they're taken off. But like, that would have been quite good, you know, or one being really pretty and sort of well cared for, the other kind of just horrendously sort of gnarly, you know, and so on. But
once again, in the history of TV podcast industries, I'm glad we do not write TV shows. I really am. But the point of this whole interaction between Corinthian and Ethel Cripps is because Corinthian's trying to convince her to use the tools to take out the King of Dreams, to kill him, take him out, allow Corinthian and maybe other nightmares like himself to continue walking the earth. So I like that idea that he's pushing her in that way to use these tools, and she has already created a protection for herself. She traded in the helm for this amulet of protection, which allows her to block him when he pushes too far. So, as I said, this threat to her of, I'm going to take your eyes, I don't even need you to talk to me. And she's going, you're going to really regret this, which she does, because he is wiped out of the waking world.
Yeah, I loved that whole visual of him effectively almost kind of becoming, like, splitting apart and becoming liquid.
It's like he's being turned inside out.
Yeah, it was really nicely done, and I really enjoyed that. And I was, again, it's just because, you know, Ethel is, I mean, we got a sense of it anyway, where, you know, when Corinthian comes in, first off, you know, he says, you've done a good job of convincing people you don't exist. You know, she's done a really, like, good job of keeping that low profile, of making sure that even though she's traded these powerful tools from Morpheus, she's gotten something in return for at least one of them, that is equally as powerful for the protection of herself. So I just really like this from Ethel. It showed her smarts, and so on.
Absolutely. And she's clearly had to deal with this kind of stuff before. In a way, she's a very strong character, so she already knows she needs protection from certain entities.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, even I think, I don't know, I haven't read the comics, as I will probably keep saying throughout this whole season, but even to the point where it felt her son Johnny was in that high protection medical facility or prison, as well as a way of protection for her in some way, or just wider society. Like, you know, I got that sense of her having to do this thing, not out of necessary choice, but of necessity for some reason.
Yeah, so we do hear that he's the one that used the ruby, so we heard that from the Fates, that the ruby was passed on from mother to son, so that's John Dee. We get to meet him for a moment in the episode, but we hear in the descriptions to the Corinthian that the ruby grants dreams but also creates nightmares, and it seems like the ruby overtook John Dee. It seems to have changed him and made him use it to create nightmares or something like that. That seems to be the point of that interaction. But I did like introduction to John Dee. I think he's can you just pop up there?
That's exactly what it is. It's David.
Always forget David Thewlis. That's it.
Thewlis! Well,
he's there.
David Thewlis.
He was on the next screen.
Is there?
John Dee, I did like the introduction of John Dee here. I liked having David Thewlis playing him. That's really interesting casting. I think Corinthian also mentions that the tools of Dream have kept Ethel Cripps young, and it's interesting having David Thewlis being a similar age actor as Jolie Richardson. He's not significantly older or significantly younger, so you're kind of seeing that the two of them look around the same age, even though that's his mother, from Roderick Burgess. I loved his line when she asks how John Dee is, and he goes, I'm slightly bored, highly medicated in my prison. I thought that was a good description of his boring life, being stuck in this location. So,
yeah. No, and I absolutely love Jolie Richardson. I always have loved her from a horror aspect, and kind of dealing with this kind of craziness since Event Horizon.
Oh yes, of course, and she was in Nip Tuck for years as well, wasn't she? Yeah, really like Jolie Richardson.
So she really does embody that type of character that is Ethel in this, which is that kind of strong-willed kind of female empowered woman who won't take crap. So, and we see this again, even with when we talked about, like the Corinthian just getting pulled or destroyed and thrown back to the realm of dreams.
Yeah, discombobulated, maybe.
That's a good way. Yes, discombobulated back to the realm of dreams.
Yes.
And I look forward to seeing more kind of throughout the season of her as she kind of goes in, because it depends on what or how much they use of Ethel from the comic books.
Yeah, that will be interesting to see where the character goes in the season, especially now that we've introduced John Dee, her son. Now there'll be there's lots more to come. One element I found kind of odd in the episode. I loved her pushing Corinthian back to the realm of dreams, but I think that meeting with Lucienne and Corinthian is a bit odd. He escaped the realm of dreams before Morpheus was captured, but I thought it was kind of odd that they put him back there and then he just kind of walked back out again.
Yeah.
It felt like, does he have that power to just walk back and forth between the realm of dreams? Like Lucienne had that conversation with Morpheus when he was leaving about giving him a raven, because ravens can travel between the two realms really easily. But it seems like Corinthian also has that power without. They just didn't give any explanation for it in the episode as to why he's able to just walk out the front door.
Yeah,
you know? I guess it's not sealed yet because Morpheus hasn't really restored the realm yet.
Exactly. And I mean, the other dreams and nightmares have left, in the most part, to wherever. And I guess some of that is to the real world, and that's why you have the sleepy sickness and all those events going on in the real world, and that's kind of touched upon in the first episode.
I guess it's like the realm of dreams is now kind of a bucket with a hole in it, and Morpheus hasn't plugged that hole yet, so they can just come and go as they please. So he's kind of pouring water into that bucket, basically.
I want to see more dreams and nightmares, though. That is my thing. I'm hoping we've been told that all of the inhabitants outside of Lucienne has kind of disappeared. So I'm hoping we see more throughout the season.
Yeah. But we've seen Gregory. He is a nightmare.
It's true. Gregory and Cain and Abel. But I want to see, I literally, like, when you start to think, if you remember that first fly through in episode 1, where you start seeing all the potential, I'm like, okay, well, give me that potential.
Absolutely. Yeah. We've seen Martin Tenbones. We've seen Marv Bunkenhead in there as well.
Yeah. I mean, what I do like from Corinthian effectively reforming in outside the gates of the realm or the kingdom is just when he says to Lucienne, the dream doesn't care about you or I, and you're never going to be able to change him or save him. So there's this idea that, Morpheus is this immovable object, and presence.
Yes.
So, it is almost from Corinthian's eyes that the King of Dreams is a despotic king here. And I thought that was quite good as well.
Yes, and in his eyes, because he can't really see very well. Yes.
Or in his mouth.
In his mouth. Yes, and that's a really interesting point. Is effectively Corinthian has left because he's lost all respect for Morpheus. He left before Morpheus was captured as well, and is going out to, I suppose, create his nightmares in the waking world. So I think that it wasn't a really interesting discussion. I just felt like they may needed to have nailed a little bit more why he's walking back and forth between the realms when he's been sent back there by this powerful amulet. Is he just going to suddenly appear back in Ethel Cripp's apartment 10 minutes later because he's so easy to be able to move in and out of the realms? But anyway, it was a good conversation.
Yeah, so I think that's everything. Anything else from the episode, my fellow fates?
Very quickly, just the throne room. we see Morpheus kind of pick up his shattered glass, stained glass, and all that type of thing. So really just looking forward to seeing that kind of pulled together. Like when he does get his powers back and things like, because he will. It's inevitable, like fate. So I want to see that being pulled back together, because the style and the scape and the scope of that shot was just fantastic.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Really good.
Really cool. Really cool. Nothing else from me for the episode?
No, I mean, I think the only thing you touched on it a bit, Chris, and I really enjoyed this episode, and you said, it was an hour, 20 minutes. This was 37 minutes long. I was almost, after watching it, I kind of said to Derek, this felt like episode 1.5 in a sense. It's still establishing. It's very much still establishing. And, I think it's important for us. It feels important for me to, say to our listeners that, this is still establishing, and I guess, I just wonder whether that will come off as quite slow for people. Again, I think it being dropped all at once means people can just kind of scoot through, and so it becomes more, cinematic in that sense, in terms of the length of how many episodes that you can watch. But, just, if this was released weekly, I feel this was kind of, relatively speaking, quite short. I mean, I don't think it's 37 minutes, but it felt like 1.5, and it parts of it could have been at the end of episode 1, and then some at the start of episode 2, to some extent. I really kind of got that sense from this episode, and I don't usually, sort of worry about those kind of things, but I really did kind of get that sense. But I still absolutely enjoyed it, and I think it is necessary. I mean, this is an entire universe that's being introduced, and the rules and different places need to be looked at as well.
A lot needs to be established at this stage so that we can crack on with the storylines as they come in. But you're totally right. I think before the show was coming out, I was kind of frustrated because I do not like shows that drop to be binged on Netflix. I'm much rather talking about shows on a weekly basis. But if this had been released weekly, there's no way this would be the second episode. There's no way there would be much more content poured into it. That said, though, the comics came out monthly. These are stories from the comics. And you would have been waiting an entire month for part of this story, not even the full episode of one comic issue. The actual, I think this story takes place during Preludes and Nocturnes, the first volume of the book, and I think this is 2 issues together is what this episode is. So you would have had only half of the story, waited a month, and then had the other half of the story. So.
There's still content here. I'm not having a go that it's content light. It's just, it's necessary to have this kind of foundation put in at the start of this series.
Yep. But lots to crack on with as the season goes on. Agreed.
And I think that we'll discuss as it gets closer to the mid-season and kind of end of season whether some of the choices were right choices. Again, it's a 10 episode season dropping in one day, so it's going to be interesting to see whether the Netflix model versus the Disney Plus kind of old school weekly model, which is kind of working best at this point. But that is a discussion for a different day.
Exactly. Well, Chris, what did you think of Sandman Chapter 2, Imperfect Hosts?
It was fantastic. It was a great host, if you will. I enjoyed what it was. I enjoyed what it was for what it was in the overall scheme of the narrative. It delivered more exposition, and much like Lucienne it could have moved towards Basil exposition and kind of just explained more types of things about, like, just for the sake of having to explain it. It was all delivered in a way that it was enjoyment. It was fun. It was a nice 35-minute kind of jaunt. It could have been part of episode 1 and episode 3, partially, but I think for what it was, the introduction to Cain and Abel, the introduction of the Fates, and just some of the visuals alone, it was just fun to have.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah, I agree with you. I think as someone who's been reading the comics for years, seeing these episodes with characters I really like and spending time with them and giving them their own little moments. I think Lucienne in the first episode didn't get enough time for me on screen. A really important character, so giving her moments in here so you can see her personality much more was really important. So that character can carry through the season. Seeing Cain and Abel, because just the concept of the two of them, of Cain killing Abel at the drop of a hat, I think is a really fun, in a way, it's quite dark, but a really fun concept to introduce in here. Having the introduction of Goldie and the loss of Gregory in here, both dealt with really well. Jumping off the page onto the screen were really good. And then Corinthian versus Ethel Cripps, I think is a really good moment that's for the show here. I thought that was really good. I love the presence of keeping Corinthian involved in this story and him effectively looking for ways to stay on Earth, and that's been a really good addition to the story. But yes, as you said, John, there's a limited amount in this episode, but I think as a fan, I'm really happy of how they've translated it and put it on screen in this way. We don't always get that when we see our adaptations onto TV shows. So really good. And there's another episode to watch immediately afterwards, which is always great. How about yourself, John? What did you think of the episode overall?
Yeah, I really like this. I'd give it 4 red hot poker face, my poker face, out of 5. Irrespective of what I was saying about the episode length and so on, this had a lot of content. I love seeing the Morpheus, getting to know him more, and his mission now, and him with Lucienne, really important. I loved having Corinthian and Ethel Cripps in her apartment. I just thought that was really creepy, tense. I think it worked really, really well. There's some visualizations here that I just absolutely loved, whether it was from the Corinthian sort of breaking apart and reforming in the realm of dreams, to sort of the whole sea of dreams, and the fates. Yes. Again, loved seeing the fates, loved seeing Cain and Abel, all these lovely little snippets here. And of course, just having that connection back to the first episode with Ethel, and then the boy born of, Roderick Burgess and Ethel, being revealed here in, the hospital prison, effectively, or highly secure, hospital ward. Johnny is kind of nicely creepy and played really well by David Thewlis here. This would be 4 red hot poker faces out of 5.
Yes. I'm just trying to remember, Chris, you might be able to help me on this one. John Dee is held in Arkham Asylum in the comics, isn't he? Yeah, so this is a representation of Arkham Asylum. They don't give the name, but I think that's where John Dee is, because there's a lot more connections to the DC comic universe when Sandman was first coming out. There's characters like Martian Manhunter are in the comic book. They'll get rid of all of those. We won't see those characters in the
Sandman.
show. The Sandman was another DC character from the 50s, a completely forgotten character by the time Neil Gaiman got his hands on him. But there are some major characters. I think we even see Batman and Robin in there. But John Dee was in Arkham Asylum, so this place that he's in, this prison or hospital that he's in, is this world's version of Arkham, basically.
Do you think we'll end up getting like a flash of Aquaman or Ezra Miller just zooming by?
Definitely not. No.
Ezra Miller with cops just following him.
Aquaman in the Sea of Dreams getting scared to death. Yeah.
Well, that's a good way. You could just literally, that's what fish are kind of dreaming about. Yeah. They just have this man screaming at them, telling them what to do.
I think it always felt really weird when you're reading those early comic books to see other major DC characters in Sandman. I always thought it felt really strange connection, and they did get rid of that for the most part as the books went on. But I wonder if this show was on HBO Max. It's made by Warner Brothers, of course, so it could have gone to HBO Max where all the rest of the DC content is. I wonder if it was over there, would you have seen a crossover with another DC Comics character?
Well, and I guess they're going to do the crossovers that make sense, and I guess maybe are a little bit more subtle, like with the Constantine character, like with Cain and Abel. I mean, you could not say that it's given any kind of great screen time, but you could envision the Swamp Thing in this as some form of nightmare for someone, but not having scenes of dialogue and all that, just that they'd be walking around the realm once it's repaired,
right?
Or something like that.
Kind of like Ready Player One, basically, for dreams and nightmares.
Yeah. I think there's a way of doing it in that way that doesn't, as such, make it weird feeling, like you say.
Yeah, and I'm glad they're doing it this way. We'll probably talk about Joanna Constantine in the next episode a bit more as well, because the next episode, Chapter 3, is Dream a Little Dream of Me. Looking forward to talking about that next time we're back. Thanks so much for joining us for our discussion about the Sandman Chapter 2, Imperfect Hosts.
Yes, thank you so much, and I will not sing you out with Dream a Little Dream of Me.
No, definitely not. But if you want to send in any of your thoughts for any of the episodes of The Sandman, please email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com or pop over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries. There are, I think, 7 so far spoiler posts up on the Facebook group where you can pop in your thoughts about each of the individual episodes as you go through them. So we'd love to hear your thoughts over there as well.
Yes, and if you enjoyed what you've heard and this little discussion that we have, why not head on over to patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries, where you too can help support this wee little podcast in the endless sea of dreams, but for any monthly amount on an ongoing basis. Or if you want to do a one-off donation, you can head on over to buymeacoffee.com/TVPI, where you can help our illustrious editor stay awake and to stay away from the land of dreams as he toils away into the wee hours of the night editing these podcasts for your audio pleasure.
That's really important, because if I fall asleep for even a second, I may leave in something that I shouldn't be leaving in.
Absolutely.
Probably a pronunciation of Constantine or Constantine.
Exactly. But fellow dreamers, we will be back next time for our discussion of the Sandman Chapter 3, Dream a Little Dream of Me.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for joining us. Talk to you again next time.
Bye.
Yeah, thanks so much, fellow dreamers, for joining us. Remember, keep watching, keep listening, and keep dreaming.
Bye.
Bye.